The Ozark Mountains had always been a sanctuary for Eleanor. She loved the solitude, the way the dense forest embraced her with its wild serenity. On this particular morning, she set out early, eager to explore a lesser-known trail. The air was crisp, the path dappled with the golden light of dawn filtering through the leaves. As she ventured deeper, the trees grew thicker, their gnarled branches forming an almost impenetrable canopy overhead. The silence of the forest was punctuated only by the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. Eleanor felt a sense of peace, her worries melting away with each step. After a few hours, she noticed the trail beginning to fade, swallowed by the undergrowth. Determined to press on, she used her compass and map to navigate. The air grew cooler, the light dimmer, and a strange, oppressive feeling settled over her. The forest seemed to close in around her, the trees leaning in like silent sentinels. Then she heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whispering carried on the wind. She stopped, straining to catch the words, but they were too faint, too elusive. Unease prickled at the edges of her mind, but she shook it off, attributing it to her imagination. As she continued, the whispering grew louder, more insistent. She glanced around, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, but saw nothing. The feeling of being watched was undeniable now, a cold knot of fear tightening in her stomach. Eleanor quickened her pace, her heart pounding. The forest was changing, the trees seeming to twist and contort, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to snare her. The whispering had turned into a cacophony of hissing voices, surrounding her, closing in. Suddenly, the path opened into a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient, gnarled tree, its trunk twisted and blackened as if by fire. Something about it felt profoundly wrong. As she approached, she saw strange symbols carved into its bark, pulsating with an eerie, otherworldly glow. A shiver ran down her spine as she stepped closer, compelled by a force she couldn't understand. The whispering voices were deafening now, filling her mind with a torrent of incomprehensible words. She reached out, her hand trembling, and touched the tree. Instantly, the forest fell silent. The air grew still, the oppressive weight lifting. But as she turned to leave, she saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. Tall and thin, with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed with an unnatural light, it watched her with a predatory intensity. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. She stumbled backward, her eyes locked on the creature. It moved with a fluid grace, its movements unnaturally smooth, as if it were gliding across the ground. Panic surged through her, and she turned and ran, branches clawing at her clothes and skin. The creature followed, its presence palpable, a dark shadow at the edge of her vision. She could hear its footsteps, a soft, rhythmic crunching of leaves. No matter how fast she ran, it was always there, always just behind her. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she didn't dare stop. The whispering had returned, louder and more frenzied, filling her ears with its maddening chorus. She burst through the trees and found herself back on the trail, the sunlight blinding after the darkness of the forest. She didn't stop running until she reached her car, slamming the door shut and locking it with trembling hands. As she sped away, she glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the creature emerging from the trees. But the road behind her was empty. Eleanor never returned to the Ozarks. The memory of that day haunted her, the whispering voices and the glowing eyes, a constant presence in her nightmares. She could never shake the feeling that the creature was still out there, watching, waiting for her to return.